Hi, this is voice of the St. Joseph Sports Network, Matt Martucci, and you're listening to Sports and Rants on Radio 1851.
And we are back live with former NHL All-Star and Philadelphia Flyer Tim Kerr. How are you doing today, Tim?
I'm doing great, fellas. Good to be with you guys.
Thanks for joining us. We appreciate your time. So we got to know, have you been following the Flyers this season?
Yeah, definitely. You know, I'm a Philadelphia sports fan at heart, and certainly keeping an eye on those guys. And you know, they seem to have it turned around a little bit right now, and got points in their last 5 games. So hopefully things will continue going well for them.
Now, for our listeners, you still live locally, correct?
Yes, I'm down in Avalon, New Jersey.
So do you get the Flyers games there as well, and you watch them there with your family?
Yeah, we watch all the sports, but we certainly keep an eye on the Flyers and things like that, which is a lot of fun.
Now we're going to get into your early life and your career now. What was it like growing up? Did you always want to be a hockey player? Is this something that you always wanted to do?
Well, growing up in Canada, it's pretty much of course, as you know, the national sport there, and it's something that just about all kids there was play hockey, and certainly I think every kid in Canada wants to grow up and be an NHL player, but it's just a process of going through the different levels and and getting breaks along the way, which I certainly did, and was one of the fortunate ones to make it to the NHL. But most kids in Canada growing up all want to be hockey players.
Now, did you have a coach or somebody specific that helped guide you in that direction, that pushed you and made you into an NHL player?
Well, I think, there'd probably be a lot of coaches, going through the different levels of, minor hockey and then some junior hockey and then junior A level hockey and then obviously up to the next level. But there's probably a lot of different coaches that were certainly a part of that process.
With being undrafted by the Flyers, at what point did you realize that you had an NHL caliber play?
Well, it was an interesting time, and what happened was there used to have to be a certain age before you could get drafted, and then they lowered it and they called it an underage draft, and that's the year that I did not get picked up, and I had one more year of junior A hockey, and I thought that I was going to be drafted, actually, and there was some teams that it showed interest, and then draft day came, and I wasn't picked, which was obviously a little disheartening. But when I went to my last year of junior A, I was then, 3 or 4 teams were trying to sign me at the time, and I ended up deciding on Philadelphia, which, was a great decision to make there, and certainly happy I went that route.
Now, seeing yourself as undrafted, did that motivate you to play harder, to get your name out there and to get that attention and reach that goal of the NHL?
Well, it certainly, when it happened, it was a step back for me, mentally, but I think it did, make me hungrier and want to work harder. And, I was playing junior A hockey in Kingston, and I still had one more year of junior. So certainly, motivated me. And then by the time I went to training camp, I actually signed before my last year of junior. So when I played in Kingston my last year, I was already signed with the Flyers. But no question, and it's something that I tell my kids today. It's great to be a first-round draft pick, but you see a lot of athletes in all the different sports that aren't drafted and still work their ways and get the opportunities and take advantage of them.
What was it that made you so appealing to the Flyers? Was it your shooting, or what aspect of your play?
I think, early on it was my size. The Flyers, different than today's game. I mean, today is more of a speed game and not necessarily size. But back in the, in the 80s, they loved the size, and, I think that probably more than anything.
Were there any other teams interested in you besides the Flyers, or was it mostly the Flyers all the way?
No, I had 4 teams. I had Detroit, Vancouver, the Flyers, and there was one other team, I can't think of it right now, but there was 4 teams that were trying to sign me. Vancouver and Philadelphia, were the most aggressive, and Detroit, which was across from where I grew up and just outside of Windsor. I think there was another team that had a little interest, but those 3 were, forefront.
Now, we know coming into Philadelphia can be difficult, especially as a young guy. What was your opinion of the city, the fans? What did you hear before coming in playing for the Flyers?
Well, it's obviously it's the first big city I've ever been in. Growing up in a small town, Tecumseh, and then playing junior in Kingston, Ontario, which was not a very big place. But there were so many great veterans that were still there. Bob Clark and Billy Barber and Rick McLeish and Reggie Leach and these guys, and so the transition, was great. And Pat Quinn was my first coach, and certainly, he showed me the ropes and taught me how to be a pro. And the great thing about Philadelphia is they're going to let you know how they feel, and I'm okay with that. There's nothing wrong with that, and you work hard, and those people are going to not have a problem with you. So it's kind of what I did.
Now, you just spoke to it, coming in as a rookie, seeing guys like Bobby Clark, Bill Barber. How much of a culture shock was that to you, and what did they bring to the locker room to help you grow as a player?
Well, just their experience and learning how to be a pro. I mean, it's a lot different when you leave junior hockey. Then you sign a contract in the NHL, and now you're playing in the NHL. And my transition was kind of interesting because when I signed with the Flyers, at the end of my last junior year, I went up to Portland, Maine, and played like 5 or 6 games at the end of the year there. And I actually drove to Portland the next year, which is where our training camp was, thinking that I was going to be in Portland. But obviously, I got some breaks and some opportunities and took advantage of them. And Pat Quinn, gave me the chance. But it was a veteran team back then, and those guys, you keep your ears open and watch what you're doing and watch how they operate, and you learn quickly what the right way to do it is.
Now, in your opinion, what kind of play did you bring to the Flyers? How did you make them better?
Well, obviously my first few years is more of a grinder, a power forward, and then kind of transition more of a goal-scoring role. But it's all about teamwork and working together out there. And the only reason you have success is because of the other guys on the ice with you. And we certainly had some great teams over my time there that worked together and played together, and were a great team that way.
You came into the Flyers organization when they were far from struggling. At what point did you have that moment when the team really accepted you and brought you into becoming a Philadelphia Flyer?
Well, it's a process like anything else, and as a rookie in the NHL back in the day, you carried a lot of other guys' bags and stuff like that, and they would make sure you knew you were a rookie. That's for sure. But
just carrying your bags, just carrying.
Oh yeah, carrying bags. Yeah, and they keep you on your toes. But you show up every day, you work hard, you respect your elders, and you're going to get brought into their fold, which fortunately I was able to do. Did
that make you nervous at all, like their games that they would play with you, or just got you ready for the ice?
Yeah, I mean it's all in fun, a lot of that stuff, and it's you pay your dues like in any other thing that we do in life, and you have to work to to gain credibility from other people, and and they want to test you and make sure you're a team guy and things like that, and once you get over that, it all pretty much falls in place.
Now, after a few years with the Flyers, you finally established yourself as many would say the best goal scorer in the league at the time, or one of the best goal scorers in the league. What are your thoughts on that? And you were compared to players like Wayne Gretzky. What were your thoughts back then playing about that?
Well, as I said earlier about the team, I mean, it's, my first couple of years, I had 20 plus goals, and then my third year, I had a couple knee operations, and during that year in that rehab with Pat Croce back then, he really was able to work more on my legs and building strength in my legs, which I hadn't spent a lot of time on, through my life. I always was upper body strength, but not necessarily, my bottom half. And by the time my fourth year came, I was much better and stronger on my skates, and got an opportunity to play with some really skilled guys, and where they put me in a position to score the goals. So, my career kind of transitioned there. But it's one thing to be talked about as a great goal scorer, but it comes down to the players you're on the ice with, because if they can't get you the puck, you're not going to score many goals. So, my success was because of the other players I was playing with.
Now, going off that, was there anybody that you liked the most on the ice to play with, that fed you the puck the best, anything of that sort?
Well, over time, I had a lot of, great centermen, going back with Dave Poulin and Pelle Eklund and Peter Zezel, and obviously breaking in with, Bob Clark, and played a little bit with him my first year. So you play with a lot of skilled guys who are certainly trying to find you there when you're open.
Now, you spoke a little bit about your injuries that you had over your career. We're noticing now that there's even more injuries, especially in the leg area. What can you say about that, and was it something that you could have done better to stop these injuries, or was it just a fluke accident?
Well, I know, the game is different today than it was in my time, but for players in my era, I know for me, and I had 11 shoulder operations, and I think part of my problem was I got too bulky and didn't have the stretching ability and the flexibility. And today, these kids are actually stronger. They're more flexible. There's much better training in place today than back when I was growing up. And basically, my training was going to the gym myself and trying to figure out where today, you have a lot of smart people around these kids showing them how to do it and the right thing to do. But injuries are a part of any sport, and hockey's it's a fast-paced game, and it's a contact game, so there's going to be injuries, and there's unfortunately not a lot of ways around that.
Now, going off that, we're seeing more of the concussion issue raised nowadays, and there's lots of talks about concussions, especially hockey players after their career ended. What are your thoughts on concussions, and during your time, did you see them as preventable?
Well, again, it's a tough thing. The only difference between my era and today's is we didn't know what concussions were back then. I mean, if you got your bell rung, you'd take a couple aspirin, have a couple beers, and get up the next day and go to work. And today they have a lot of different things in place where they can test that, which we didn't have. But again, it's a contact sport, and they certainly, I think they've gotten things better with better helmets and and mouth guards that help prevent concussions, and obviously they look after them a lot better today than back in my time. But you see some of the things in the other sports with concussions from former athletes, and it's just hard for me to say if it had an impact or not in hockey.
For you in particular, what halted your career was definitely the injuries that you had. You had knee issues and you broke a leg. Do you think that your career would have had more of a longevity to it if it wasn't for the injuries, and the injuries were really the only thing that was able to stop you on the ice?
Well, it's certainly, they take their toll. And, for me, it was my knee. In my last year, I couldn't regain strength in my knee, and I went in for one more operation, and the doctor said there's not really a lot I can do for you, so that's when I retired. But, certainly if I hadn't had the injuries, I would have played a few more years. But, playing 12 and 13 years is still a long time, and, unfortunately I had a lot of injuries, which I lost a lot of time with, but probably would have got a few more years in for sure.
Now, in 1989, you won the Bill Masterton Trophy for basically that means for good sportsmanship off the ice and basically being a good person all around. What did that mean to you to win that award?
Well, it was a great award, and very fortunate to be picked for that, in our league, and it's something that I feel good about, and it's, I've always tried to do the right things both on and off the ice and work hard, and there's probably a lot of guys that are, can win that award, and I was just fortunate to get picked that year.
Now, going more into, you were also a several-time an All-Star. Could you just go into the experience being an All-Star, playing in the All-Star games, playing with some of the greats on the ice?
Yeah, it's obviously a lot of fun. It's not a serious game, or but it's usually 2 or 3 days long, and you have some festivities and a big dinner and get together with the league. But it's great to hang out with the other guys and in the league, and it's more of a fun, relaxing time. There's not a lot of pressure, and even when you get to the game, it's kind of a laid-back game and not much defense. But it's certainly fun to, when I look back, to hang out with those guys for a couple of days and just a little break, mentally from the grind and before you get back. But I've always enjoyed those very much.
Now, was there somebody in particular you liked playing with on the All-Star ice? Was there any good friends that you had in the league?
Not necessarily. Once you get back, back in the Flyers uniform, it's back to business. But you have a lot of respect for these other players around the league, and it's fun to get to hang out with them and get together. But once we got back to work, it was back to business with your own squad. But in the All-Star games, you get switched around quite a bit, and you play with a lot of different players. And but again, it's more of a laid-back thing. It's not a real high-pressure game. Now,
what was going into it with your Flyers career? What would you say is your fondest memory out on the ice with the Flyers team?
Well, I look back to the teams we had in the mid-'80s, and we really had some good teams there, and we're a really close team. And when I look back, those are the years that were the most fun, because we'd come to the rink expecting to win every night, and we had a great bunch of guys and got along really well and had some great years. Unfortunately, we never did win the cup, but we certainly knocked on the door a couple times.
Do you still keep in contact with any of those former teammates from those close cup times? Yeah,
we see, they have different events. The alumni has different events and some golf tournaments, and it's an opportunity to catch up with guys, and which is fun to do. And everybody kind of goes their own way, but there's 2 or 3 times a year where you'll see guys at different events, which is always nice.
Now, a question we like to ask hockey players, former hockey players, when we have them on our show is, now, you have kids. Do you allow them to play hockey, and did they play hockey?
My kids, we played a little bit when they were younger, but they ended up getting into basketball more than hockey. And living down at the shore, there wasn't a lot of rinks down this way, so it was kind of, more of they transitioned into basketball, and have done really well with that.
Now, how's life been after hockey? What have you been doing? And please tell our listeners, describe what you've been doing since retirement.
Well, I've done quite a few different things. Obviously, I have my real estate company down in Avalon, New Jersey. I've had a couple of minor league teams in the Southern Professional League that I'm still involved with, and keeping busy with that and chasing my kids around is kind of what I do.
How did you become part-time ownership of the minor league teams? Just
got involved. I owned a team in Pensacola in the ECHL, and then I actually sold that, and then I put a team back in Pensacola in the Southern Professional Hockey League. But it's a lot of fun to be still involved with these young kids, that want to try to get to the next level. And it's certainly, my passion is in the games is well spent there, so it works out well.
Now, did the NHL help you in any way, or did the Flyers organization help you, guide you for a career after hockey?
Well, during your career when you're playing, the Flyers were always there to help you in any way. Obviously they didn't really want guys getting into business while they were still playing there, but you learn a lot over the years. And when I left the game, I was in a good frame to I didn't want to work for anybody. I wanted to work for myself, and was able to get into things where I'm able to do that.
Now, as we wrap up the interview here, we just want to know, what's your favorite accomplishment that you've done in your hockey career?
That's a tough one. There's a lot of things. I when I get asked that question, I go back to those mid years in the '80s where we had really good teams and had a really good bunch of guys, and there's not too many single accomplishments because they're not really single. You need to have those guys on the ice with you to give you those opportunities and stuff. But I think when I scored 4 goals in a playoff game in New York was a pretty cool night, and we knocked them out. But that might be the one that would stand out there.
Well, Tim, thank you for joining us. We loved looking back on your career. We appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, my pleasure, guys, and good luck going forward, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. And we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back.
This concludes our podcast of Sports and Rants with Brent and Pan. Thank you for listening. Please follow us on Twitter @Sports and Rants. Like us on Facebook. Remember to subscribe to us on iTunes. And visit our website, www.sportsandrants.blogspot.com. It would help our rankings on iTunes if you rate and review our podcast. Thanks, and have a good day.